Doing your first art fair can be really, really stressful. I know, because I've been doing art fairs for the past 10 years, and the first few art fairs that I did, I was so concerned if I would damage my work, if I would lose money on the whole thing, if I'd be able to work up the nerve to talk to customers enough to sell anything. It was a really daunting experience for me at first, and so I want to help you by sharing some tips that I've learned over the years that help me do art fairs and make the most money that I can out of them. And the first thing is make a list. There are a lot of moving parts to organize when it comes to art fairs. I mean, you have to have your tent, your weight bags, all of the art that you're going to hang, your card reader, like your square on your phone, change. You also have to have art booth lighting sometimes if you're selling work at night. It just really depends on the event you're going to. If it's going to be raining or if it's going to be really hot, you need to have supplies to be able to deal with those types of weather conditions. And so making a list will help you not forget anything, because the worst thing, the most stressful thing is if you get to the art fair and then you're like, oh wait, I didn't bring my art fair tent, or oh, I didn't bring my weight bags. You know, some really crucial item that you absolutely have to set up your art fair booth. And then you're scrambling trying to figure out, if you can go to Lowe's to buy this particular thing that you forgot, or whether you have to drive all the way back home to get it. I had this happen one time. This wasn't one of my first art fairs, but this was like maybe 5 or 6 years into me doing art fairs, and I forgot the sign, the banner that was going to go on the front of my booth. Now, I could set up my booth without it, and so it was just fine. But it is an example of forgetting something that I really, really wanted. And if you have a sign on the front of your booth, you're going to make more money. And so I know that I lost money on that show because I didn't have the sign. But if you make a list ahead of time, you can go through and make sure you pack all of that stuff in your van or truck, whatever you're transporting your things to the art fair in. So this is a really great way to alleviate stress and just make sure that you have all the supplies that you need. Along those lines, I did briefly mention the weather. You want to make sure to have a weather app on your phone so that way you can track the radar, because things change quickly when it comes to the weather. I mean, there may be, let's say, a 20% chance of rain, and you don't know if there really will be any rain. Probably not, but there might be. And you want to be able to stay apprised of the situation, because if it's going to rain, you need to be able to shut down your booth quickly so you won't damage your artwork. You also need to know if there's going to be any really bad weather, like lightning, because it is unsafe to be in an art fair booth if there's a lot of lightning or if there's hail, things like that. You need to know what's going on when it comes to the weather. Also, if it's very, very hot outside, you need to make sure to take enough water and fans, things to keep yourself cool, because heat stroke really is a thing and it can happen at art fairs. I've seen it happen to other artists, especially older artists at these events. And so if you are one of those people who has health concerns, things like that, take into consideration just how hot it's going to be and prepare for that ahead of time. Now, sometimes it can be hard to figure out what to do, how to set up a booth for sheep. And if you are still having problems finding everything you need to set up your art booth, I've put a link to my video that I made about cheap art fair booth setups in the description. It'll give you all the resources that you need. And there's also a video down there in the description about art booth lighting, like really cheap ones that work really well. So if you're trying to figure out that stuff still, definitely go see those resources. Next is having the help that you need, because when you're thinking about doing an art fair, oftentimes as artists, we're doing these events ourselves. You're setting up your booth, you're manning the booth, everything yourself. But if that's the case, then you need to realize that you're going to have to leave to take bathroom breaks, have a lunch break, sometimes have a little bit of time away from the booth. So you got to kind of keep in mind how you're going to achieve that. Now, some people plan ahead and know that there are booth sitters at the event and they schedule somebody to come and watch their booth. And so this is part of preparation. If you know that the event is going to have booth sitters, you need to figure out how you will be contacting them, and they'll have some way to do it. Some events have a form that you can fill out where you can just put your name on the list and a time. Other events have text messages where you can text someone who's volunteering there at the event and they'll come booth sit. Sometimes you just have to flag down somebody as they're walking by. And so you'll have to see how each event does this. But if you don't have a booth sitter, then you have to plan on just running really quickly to a bathroom break and coming back and leaving your booth unattended, or hoping to find another artist nearby who can watch your booth for you while you leave. But if you have another artist watching your booth, you have to keep in mind that they are also watching their booth and they need to sell their work, and their work will definitely always take priority. And so you might not have as good of a booth sitter as you think you do in your booth neighbor, and you shouldn't really count on that too well. And I usually don't. I always try to bring somebody with me to the art fair to help me do the art fair, and I pay them to work for me. I don't just get volunteers. And this way I have all of the help I need. Now, when you're first starting out, you might not be able to afford to pay someone, but you could ask your significant other or your kids or some other family member who might be willing to volunteer to help you at your booth and go with you to the show. And by doing this, you'll be able to lower your stress levels, because if you know how you're going to get bathroom breaks, how you're going to have a lunch break, you'll just have somebody there to back you up in whatever capacity it is. It's going to make you feel less stressed. And that's the whole thing here with preparing, right? Is that you want to go into this in the best possible headspace with the least amount of stress. And so preparation is key to be able to do this correctly. But also you have to realize that you're going to have patience with yourself, because when you are first starting doing art fairs, you're going to make tons of mistakes. But each time you make a mistake, like you forget something, or you don't have enough help, or it's raining and you didn't realize it was going to be and you ruined some work, anytime some of these things happens, it's going to make you a better art fair artist, because it's going to teach you resilience. And this is one of the things that preparation can't really do. It's more like practice gives you resilience, but resilience is key to being able to have a good headspace going into this. Because if you know that you can make it through it, like you've made it through a whole bunch of other stuff before, so you can really handle anything that comes your way, then you'll be a lot less stressed, and you'll know that you can do it. You'll have confidence in yourself and your abilities to sell your work at the art fair. I know this goes without saying, but make sure that you take enough art with you. I've seen it lots of times where people underestimate the amount of work that they're going to sell, and so they take just barely enough to very lightly hang their booth, and they sell a bunch of stuff, and then after the first day their booth looks really empty, and then nobody buys anything on the next day because there's not much left to be able to sell. My rule of thumb is to take double the amount of work that I think I'm going to sell. That way I always have enough. Also, make sure you bring artwork that's at different price points. What I mean by this, even if it's an all original show, you need to have some lower price pieces there, because people from all different income levels attend these events. And the lower the price that you have your art for sale for, the easier it's going to be to sell. And if you're just starting out, you want to have some quick wins. And so I like to do this by having very low priced art prints, but you can do this with originals as well. Just paint like 6x6 really small pieces. Have some big ones too, because you need to have a variety in your booth. You need to have some big pieces to really pull the viewer in, and you need to have some small pieces that people can easily afford. And last but not least is signage. I think this is something that is easy to overlook, and I see lots of beginner artists making this mistake, not having signage. And this isn't just a booth sign, like a banner saying your name. What I mean by this is sales-oriented signage. So big prices that tell people what your work is for sale for. Or if you have a deal, for example, I sell art prints for $17.99. So I always put a big $17.99 sign on the outside of my booth. This brings customers into my booth because they want something that's affordable, and oftentimes my work is the more affordable side of what's available at an art fair, and so I know this is a sales point for me. Now, if low prices really aren't a sales point for you, that's okay. You don't have to have a big price sign, especially if your prices are like $1,000, but what you do want are small tags on your pieces with an actual price, because if you don't have a price, people don't know that's for sale sometimes. Even if it's at an art fair and it's obvious that everything there is for sale, to the customer, they're oftentimes too shy to even ask what the price is, because they think if there's not a price tag, maybe it's like so expensive that they can't even ever think about affording it, or maybe it's already sold to someone. So you don't know what's going on in the customer's mind. You just want to set yourself up for being able to sell work. And so having prices listed everywhere is super important. If you found this video helpful, check out the videos in this playlist. There are so many art fair tips in there. There's videos on lighting, how to talk to customers, just about anything you need to know about doing art fairs is in that playlist. All right, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.